This is Andrea Gregg, and you're listening to Death Talk Canada. Here at Death Talk, we're going to be discussing everything death. As a funeral director and embalmer, I'm surrounded by death every day. We will be discussing loss, grief, trauma, dying, palliative care, the MAID program, and the funeral industry. This is for anyone who's ever suffered loss, who lives with grief. My hope is to help you in some way by shining light on these difficult topics. Thank you for listening. Hello, Michael. How are you today?
I am excellent. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And thank you so much for coming on Death Talk Canada as one of our first guests.
Oh, wow. But
um,
I'm almost a little nervous.
well, no, not at all. No. You were on my list. Well, maybe I'll just get you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your career history.
Sure. Well, my name's Michael Dixon. I am the Executive Director of Funeral Professionals Peer Support. I've been working in the funeral service industry for over 30 years. And I'm currently working in a funeral home just on the outskirts of Ottawa in a place called Carlton Place, called Barker Funeral Home.
Excellent. And so you've been a funeral director for 30 years. Did you have a career before then?
I am actually not a funeral director.
Oh, you're not.
No, I'm not licensed.
Oh,
Uh,
serious? Okay.
yeah, yeah. But I was intending to go many, many years ago, and many times I was intending to go, but unfortunately, I never had the confidence to go due to issues I was having, and yeah, never had that confidence. I've been told many times I should do it, and I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago actually I did decide to go to Humber College, and I was accepted and all set to go, and then this association really kind of took off, and I realized
Yes.
that I needed to stay close to home and help
Well,
run this new thing.
you had bigger important things to deal with for sure, like funeral service professional peer support groups.
Yes,
Um, can
yeah,
you tell me how you started that? How did that all begin?
sure. Well, be prepared for for a long answer to a very short question. This started probably um, over 8 years ago, and it kind of started with my own story. I had, as I've said, I've been in this industry for 30 years, or over 30 years, and I've always kind of struggled probably with mental health issues, with depression and anxiety, and through from my youth through childhood sexual abuse. And when I finally broke free from that, I decided that that would never be repeated or talked about again. So I did what a lot of people, when they've experienced trauma of any sort, and I've heard other people mention this, and it's really true. You take that trauma and you lock it in a safe,
Mhm.
and you make sure that that safe is never opened. And what I did to make sure that that safe never opened, I started a kind of a long history of drinking and drug abuse. So like I would never personally, I would never drink to get drunk. I did it for probably well over 15, 20 years. Um, all through my late teenage years, through sports, through work, through funeral service. And what I would do is just drink to get a buzz and
Yeah.
maintain that buzz all day. And that kind of helped me get through my day. And so anyway, I was probably about 8, 9 years ago. I was working for a company that, for the layperson, it's basically the coroner's office. So we went to nursing homes and hospitals, but a majority of our work was coroner work. So that's murder scenes, that's car
Mhm.
accidents, that's suicides. An awful lot of the general public isn't aware that we do that sort of stuff.
No.
And they watch it on TV and they think it's the police that do that, when in fact it's us.
Yes, absolutely.
So I did that for a while, and then uh, I noticed I was really kind of struggling with anxiety. I had used to have anxiety attacks where I would like pass out, and anxiety attacks, for anybody that's ever had them, are kind of like a heart attack, or feel like a heart attack, and that's what I thought I was having. But
Terrifying. Yeah.
yeah, so I was really having a hard time, and I was also part of a mental health Canadian-wide mental health support group, and I was the Ottawa chairperson. So occasionally I'd have to go to events and that sort of thing. So and I'm normally pretty good at that, but at that time, what I used to do is have quite a few drinks to give myself the energy to do that. And I just, my depression, anxiety was really bad, and to a point where I hated being away from home. And then when I was at home, I was in my room with with the lights off.
Yeah.
Just really, really struggling and not sleeping very well and having terrible nightmares. And um, January 7th, I call my kind of my new birthday. It's kind of an anniversary. Um, I there have been suicide attempts in the past, or thoughts of suicide, and but probably about uh, December 10th of that year, and I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. Actually, I'm 60 years old. You always say 8 or 9 years ago, and and so I had decided that that Christmas coming up, we were really going to celebrate. We were going to go, I was going to go overboard on gifts, on parties, and that sort of thing, because that was going to be my last Christmas. So what I did was I picked a date, and it was January 7th. And I scouted out a location. And I'm sorry if people might get triggered with this, but I scouted out a location and went out and bought a really good insurance policy to look after my family. And so that Christmas came. We had a great time. Morning of January 7th, I woke up like I always do, had breakfast, kissed my wife goodbye, and drove my son to school. And went off into a park kind of close where I lived. And I sat in the car, and I had my last cigarettes, and I figured, okay, let's go do this. And I opened the car door, and for some reason I couldn't get out of the car. And the more I tried, the more I couldn't get out, and it kind of felt like these arms or these hands were on my shoulder, and I could kind of hear this voice in my head saying to me, "It's going to be okay. I've got you. Make that call." And I've been asked before if that's God. Well, I don't care who it was. I'm just glad that somebody did that. And so I sat there for a little while, and I started thinking, and I became very emotional, and I thought about my daughter who was getting married, who's going to walk her down the aisle, my wife, my other two boys, and uh, I I used to tell people all the time, you know what, always make that call. If you're struggling, make a call. Call me. You know, I wasn't taking the advice that I had given other people, so I decided to make a call, and I called my doctor, my family doctor. And through counseling, I realized I called my family doctor because I knew he wasn't going to answer the phone. So I tell you that to tell you this. I had decided that if somebody picks up the phone, I'll get help. If I have to leave a message, I'm walking off into the forest. So I phoned my doctor's office, and the phone rang once, and somebody picked up the phone. And I didn't say anything for a while, and I could hear the nurse going, hello, hello. And I went, hi. And like, when do you ever call your doctor's office and they ever answer the friggin' phone, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But
exactly. Yeah.
she picked it up. So anyway, I told her my situation, and I'm having a tough time, and really having issues, and I can hear her kind of going through a book, and she said, well, gee, you can't, he's really booked up almost into March. It's really crazy. She says, unfortunately, I have to answer or ask you this question. Are you suicidal? And I said, well, I've got a rope in the back of my car. And she put me on hold. And a few minutes later, the doctor came on, and he said, where are you? And I told him where I was. He said, okay. He said, are you able to drive? Because if you're not, I'm going to call an ambulance for you. And I said, no, I can drive. He said, okay, where are you again? And I told him. He said, okay, that should only take you 10, maybe 15 minutes to get here. If you're not here in 15 minutes, I'm calling the police. So off I went into his office, and we sat and talked for well over an hour. And then he sent me for some tests, and I was diagnosed with PTSD and severe depression. So after that, I was relieved. I figured, okay, great. Now I have a diagnosis. I can go get help. And everywhere I phoned, they said, well, you're not a first responder. You're not in the military. You're not in fire or police. We're just really kind of focusing on them right now, which kind of, I have PTSD. Does it really matter how I got it?
That's
You know,
right. Yeah.
like our healthcare system, and this is one of the other reasons why we started this, our healthcare system doesn't look at mental health as a disease. And, you wouldn't do that to a lung cancer patient. You wouldn't say, you know what, we're just dealing with smokers right now. I know you didn't smoke and you have secondhand smoke, but if you could wait for your cancer treatment, we don't do that, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how you got lung cancer, we look after that. We don't do that with mental health. So anyway, I finally found somebody, and still go to counseling today. Not as much as I did back then, but I still go today. And I became very open with my diagnosis, and I told my family and my friends and the people in this industry that I've known throughout the city and the province of Ontario for years. And I always got the same response. I always got, hey, that's awesome. You realize you have an issue and you're getting medication for it and you're getting help. That's really awesome. But I always kind of heard the same thing. It was, hey, can I talk to you in the office here? Or can I call you later on? And we make those calls, and it was, you know what, I'm really kind of going through the same thing you are. My partner doesn't understand this job. We're having marriage problems. I'm drinking too much.
Hmm.
I can't fall asleep at night. Um, I'm really having issues. And I really kind of discovered, and it's something about mental health care, you find out you're not the only one, right? Um, People are shocked that there's other people besides me that are having these issues. So myself and a group of beautiful people got together at dinner one night, and we said, you know what, we should really start a support program for people in our industry. And um, others went, yeah, that's a great idea, but how do we do it? And I said, well,
Hmm.
we'll just Google it. You just go on Google and look up what others are in Canada or the United States are doing, and we'll just follow what they're doing. So we looked and we looked and we looked, and there was nothing. So this group of people, including myself, realized that we had to start this from the ground up. And that's how that was born.
Wow. I first heard about your support group probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And that was through um, a teacher here that teaches the local funeral services program. And I think for me, I was mind blown that that existed, that somebody was recognizing the funeral industry
Hmm.
as potentially having those same issues, mental health and substance abuse issues and potential PTSD. And I thought, finally, somebody gets this. And so I was immediately drawn to that and to your story. And I've been on a few of the support meeting calls, and they've been very enlightening, and it's a soft place to land, and you're certainly somebody that draws people like that to you because they know they can talk to you openly about these issues. And there's certainly such a huge stigma still,
Oh yeah,
around in every industry, but especially I find funeral industry, it's suck it up, it's what we
yeah,
do. you
yeah,
know
very much. And like we hear those comments all the time. Would you tell somebody who has brain cancer to you'll be fine,
yeah.
you know, just suck it up? Well, no, no, you wouldn't say that.
No, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And I can't tell you how many people, including myself, have battled substance abuse issues,
Hmm.
primarily in the funeral industry. I mean, it's rampant, and I think it is a way that we've dealt with it. And just to come home, and the first thing you do is grab a bottle out of the fridge, and just to numb everything away.
Hmm.
And I did that as well, and I've been
Yeah.
sober for 2 years almost.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and congratulations to you,
Well,
Michael.
you know
So,
what? Yeah, I don't call myself an alcoholic. I call myself a drug addict. Um, I can now, I don't need alcohol to run my day, to live my life. I don't need that anymore. I can have it in the house now. I could have one drink like I do
mhm,
and just not touch it for 2 or 3 weeks. It's the drugs that I know I have a, an addiction to. Like I can't
yeah,
even be around it, right? So I
yeah,
wouldn't, so I wasn't alcohol wise. I used it as a crutch, as other people take vitamins,
yes,
like
yeah,
to get through their day. That's what I did, and I was speaking to a group in Niagara Falls a few years ago, and I can remember this one guy. He ran a remote service, and he said, "Well, he said our guys and girls do a talk down, I guess, on payday every Friday. They go to the local pub and sit there for a while and talk and stuff." And I said to him, I said, "Well, you do realize that alcohol is a depressant, right?" Like,
it's not going to help in the long run.
no, no, no. I
No,
love that you're getting together, but wrong place to do it.
that's right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And back to the funeral industry not being included in that conversation of mental health and potential PTSD. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that we've been left out of that?
Well, one thing I think that paramedics, fire, and the police have done is that publicly they've been very open with their situations, with the fact that they have members of that workforce that are struggling, and they've reached out to the public and said, "Hey, you know what? We're having these issues." Funeral service, because of the industry, is very closed off. People don't talk about it. I've done a lot of these interviews over the years, and when the interviewer realizes what we do every day, they're shocked. Really, you go to murder scenes? You go to car accidents? I never knew that.
Yeah.
The general public has no idea
No
kind
clue.
of what we do every day because we don't um, we don't talk about it. We don't publicize that. I think it's time that our industry needs to say, "Hey, you know what? We're one of those responders." People call it last responders. I don't know if I agree with that term, but we are one of the responders. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you know what? It's been hard, I guess, but when you start anything new, it's tough. And but I think a lot of that is kind of us because we've always been taught to be stoic, to be don't show your feelings, don't talk about your issues, and not only in this industry, but you know um, males, right? And for years, this industry has been predominantly male,
Absolutely.
and males normally don't or hide their emotions. But I think with the evolution of women into this industry, which I think has just been incredible, that's improved this industry so much. Um, we're starting to talk about it, and
Yeah.
younger people coming into this profession, that talking about mental health issues is not a stigma as much as it used to be, you know.
Absolutely.
But
And
I
I
think,
do think that
yeah.
tide is slowly changing as well.
Hmm.
I've been in the funeral industry for 20 years now, and I can tell a difference from even back then to now, that things are certainly being spoken about much more openly. But I think it's very much thanks to organizations like yours that is, groundbreaking for people to be able to talk about this and get it out there. Um, and I too, in my earlier years, and still now, from time to time, do calls for the medical examiner service that we have in Nova
Hmm.
Scotia. And yes, people have no idea that when there's an unexpected death, whether it's a suicide, a homicide, a
Yeah.
car accident, we're there, right after the police, right after the fire,
Hmm.
and paramedics have been there. It's us coming in and seeing all of that trauma, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's still family and people
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. And something else that other responders don't deal with is, I think you work in a smaller community, right?
Yes.
Okay, right now I work in a smaller community. So those funeral homes, we don't have the luxury of a removal service. We kind of look after those ourselves, right? So even though you go and do that call and you bring that deceased to the coroner's office, the likelihood of the funeral home that you work for getting that call is much higher, right? So a paramedic, a police officer will go into a scene, will deal with it, and then they move away. Then they're gone, right? So we're not only dealing with the deceased, but if they come to our funeral home, now we're dealing with the family. You're
That's
also
right.
dealing with that deceased again, but you also have their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their children, their spouse. You're kind of reliving that all over again, where like a first responder is not,
So
right?
true. So
Yeah.
true. And oftentimes in small communities, in my experience anyway, I mean, you oftentimes know these people.
Oh, of course you
Um,
do.
yeah, so you are directly, impacted by some of these deaths. So yes, I don't think people think about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I remember reading an article years ago about some horrific car accident that happened actually in Ontario, and reading the comments underneath and everybody talking about the first responders and how awful it must have been. And somebody said, and don't forget about the funeral directors that had to do these funerals. And then that just started this whole,
Yeah.
rant about what the heck do they have to do with anything? They're just out for the money, making the big bucks. So I laugh about that.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of us make probably less than police officers
Oh my
and
God.
some paramedics, like in some cases. So it's very eye-opening, I think, to people to
Yeah.
to realize that stuff, that
Hmm.
no, not no, we might have nice suits on and drive nice cars, but
That we don't own, by the way.
exactly. Yeah. That's
It's
right.
funny.
So
What kind of helped in this organization growing is all of a sudden we started to get media coverage here in Ottawa. And it was radio, TV, and newspaper interviews that we did, and then other news outlets across the country started to pick up this story. So from the East Coast to the West Coast, started to pick up the fact that this organization was started in Ottawa. This peer support program was started in Ottawa, and that kind of opened us up to hearing from funeral professionals from across the country, oh my God, we need this. We need this support. So um, even though we started in Ottawa, and that kind of happened throughout the States and even in Africa where we are now. Um,
Wow.
that's how kind of this started, by word of mouth and people saying, "Hey, we need help out here too." And you know, going across the country, going into the U.S. Was always a goal, but it was a long-term goal. But with this coverage we had, we realized the long-term goal kind of had to be the right now goal. We had to start moving across the country and opening up our organization to other communities.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize that you had reached that far. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
So, how often do you do calls? And are people welcome to come on if they feel that they would like to?
So, as I said, everything we've done, every program we've started is the result of a need. We respond to a need. So, we didn't just start these peer support meetings and hope that people would call. We responded to that need. So in the beginning, what we did was before COVID, we had individual in-house peer support meetings kind of across Canada. And in Hamilton and Toronto and Ottawa and St. John's and Halifax. And then when COVID hit, we realized that, okay, people now in this industry, because of COVID deaths, needed support, needed help more than ever. So we stopped the in-house peer support meetings and we started to do them by Zoom. So so we have four meetings. Well, we have, yeah, four meetings a month. So one that's generated here in Canada, one that's generated through the United States, one that is from Kenya in Africa, and one other group which we're really proud of that starts during the school year is a student peer support meeting. So students, young and old, who are in funeral service educational programs can call into these peer support meetings and kind of talk about anything. Um, our the amount of um, students we have, and it's not only people in the programs, but it's also people doing their apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So at funeral homes and that sort of thing, and this is a tough program to get through, and but it also brings out fellowship, right? Somebody in going to Humber College in Toronto is, talking to somebody in Dallas, Texas, who's going through, the educational program in Texas and finding out how different they are and similar they are, and
Absolutely.
then you're talking to somebody in Nairobi, on the same meeting. So it brings people together.
Wow.
And you know, and I mentioned this at one of our meetings. One thing I'm really proud of, and see it, you talked about things are changing. Um, you would never hear, even 5 years ago, you would never hear somebody saying out loud in the middle of conversation. It's funny you say that, because I was talking to my therapist the other day. Like, now we talk about our therapists like we used to talk about our dentists.
So true.
You
Yes.
know
Yes.
it's quite open. So we have that. We're really looking at getting, having those national, international peer support meetings. And just because, the meeting is engineered from the United States, anybody around the world can join. So we also have a helpline. So where you can call in, you can text in 24 hours a day. You're speaking to a mental health professional.
Wow, that's
Yeah. So we also have another thing we instituted was an EAP program in Canada and the United States. So we have one for Canada. We have another one for the States, because a lot of funeral homes have, of course, health plans, right? Um, a lot of smaller ones don't, or if they do, it's quite expensive, right?
That's right. Yes.
But what's different with ours, and it's the same as any other plan, there's dental and eye care and prescription, but what's different with ours is a very strong mental health component to it, where coverage any other plan, they normally say, $2,000 towards mental health care. Well, if you're dealing with an addiction, if you're dealing with issues, any sort of issues, if you're dealing with a really good therapist, that might be 3 appointments, right? And you still need
Yeah.
to see that therapist, right? So it's a very strong mental health component to it. And it's not only for people in the industry, it's for their partners, it's for their children. We don't have to, I don't have to tell you how mental health has affected our youth. They're going through a lot more stuff than you and I. Now you're much younger than I am, but no, you
I don't
are. I
know.
mean, but but it's a lot worse than what we went through, right, when we were kids.
Yes.
So we have the support, and something else that we're really proud of in the next few months. We're actually starting a 12-step program through Zoom for people with substance abuse, whether it be alcohol or drugs. And
Wow.
that is being worked on and planned right now, because um, sometimes you need to talk to people that know what you're talking about, right? And that's what this
Absolutely.
is,
That
and
is amazing.
yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
expanding and talk about international networking. Like that is just unbelievable.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and back to the students, I
Sure.
think that's really important too, because it's setting a new precedence for new up and coming funeral professionals to make this normal, the new norm that we do need to deem mental health as just as important as somebody that's got cancer. And kudos to you for that, because that's extremely important. That was never
Yeah.
around when I started.
Oh, no, no. And something else we have too is, and we actually have one we've partnered with the BC Funeral Association, and we're doing educational webinars, um, two actually starting off, one in late September, one in October. You can look up our social media pages for that, to register for that. And so we do these accredited educational webinars where, a lot of it is mental health based, how to get through your day. Because we have you know, um, the stigma is there, and I'm just going to kind of throw out some stats. So, like for an example, 72% of people believe their mental health will hurt their career potential, which is so true. People are so nervous about saying, "Hey, I'm going through issues." Um, and because an employer will say, well, I have this promotion coming up, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give it to this person
Mhm.
because they're going through issues. I am walking proof that you can live with a mental health issue, you can live with PTSD or depression and still thrive. This is not a death sentence anymore.
That's right.
If you stick to your pills, if you stick to your therapy, like my my therapist said to me when I was diagnosed, she says, you know what? Now you have a diagnosis. Now it is your responsibility to make sure you do a few things. One of those things is take your medication every day. And the other thing you need to do is go to therapy every day. Don't call in sick or change the appointment. You know, uh, you also need to do some house cleaning of your friends. You did, especially with substance abuse. You need to, some of those people you hung around with, you can't hang around with anymore.
Very
And
true.
unfortunately, some of those people are family. But you have a diagnosis that You can live a long life, but you need to do the work, and no
That's
one's
right.
going to do it for you. And that kind of goes to, a lot of people don't tell their employers that they're having mental health issues or that they're having issues because, um, you know, employers also don't know how to deal with it,
Very
right?
true. And it's looked at as a weakness, and
Oh, yeah.
I know that even in my, experience that I do know people that have left their jobs, whether it be a paramedic, a police officer, or a funeral
Mhm.
director that have left their jobs from stress and PTSD. And there's still that old school mentality there that, oh geez, so and so, is taking
Yeah.
advantage and,
Yes.
using that as an excuse. And you just shake your head thinking, oh my goodness, like,
It's funny you say that. I was having a meeting with somebody, and she kind of said the same thing. She said, we don't want people to take advantage of this. I said, well, do you have maternity leave at your place of employment? And she said, well, yeah. I said, well, you find a lot of people having babies to get the time off. I mean, that's crazy, you
that's
know,
right. Absolutely. Good point.
you know,
Absolutely. Very
yeah,
true.
yeah. But
Very
but
true.
we still, and I use this example sometimes in speeches, we've all heard that old adage, don't bring your personal problems to work. Okay, let's kind of examine that for a second. So you're waiting on test results to see what that mass is on your son's brain. You're also waiting on test results. You find out your partner's been cheating on you for the last 10 years. You tell me how you're supposed to leave that in your car and go into work like there's nothing going on. That's impossible. You
Very
can't
much
do
so.
that. You can't do it. You need an outlet. You need people to talk to. So that's what these peer support meetings are all about. And it's not a bitch session. We don't talk about how awful our, what, we've been doing these meetings for years. I don't think I've ever heard once somebody, putting their employer down. It has nothing to do with their employer. It's them. It's what they're dealing with. It's,
Absolutely.
how do I, how do I deal with this? And, you know, um, people, we are losing way too many talented, talented people in this industry due to burnout, due to
I was just
suicide.
going to say, I was just
You
going to
know,
talk about burnout. Yes.
oh, like we are losing so many people. We can't afford to be losing talented people. You know, this industry, like many industries, is changing. We need to meet that change, and the way we meet that change is by talented people taking us forward. If we keep on losing them, if we don't look after them, where is this industry going to be? In a few years.
Yeah.
Um,
There will be
you know,
nobody to work, you know.
no, no, there
That's
won't,
right.
there won't, and you know, and and I kind of tell this story. I'm pretty blessed. I have my wife Tracy has. She could have left me many times over, and I gave her every reason in the world to do it, but she never did. And because she always knew that, the real Michael is there. We just kind of have to find it. And uh, I'm living with a lot of regret. I don't think I was a great father. Um, I certainly wasn't a great husband. Um, I wasn't a good employee. Um, but I'm turning that around, and it's not a fix overnight. You know, um, I don't want anybody else to go through what I've been through. I don't want anybody else to sit in their car and wait for somebody to answer the phone. You know,
Absolutely.
we we the help is there, and when I mentioned that phone call to my doctor's office, what's really interesting is I've called my doctor about other appointments and stuff. I've always had to leave a message.
There
That is
was
the
some sort of divine intervention, I think, that
yeah,
day. Whatever that
the
is. Yeah.
yeah, whatever it is, that was the only time anybody ever answered the phone. So now I pick January 7th as kind of a birthday, and I kind of do stuff on that day to celebrate that. I do stuff for myself. There's one year I brought a dozen roses to that doctor's office, and I gave it to the nurse, and she said, "What are these for?" And I said, "Well, a couple of years ago, I phoned here and you saved my life."
Wow.
And yeah, I just I know that that wasn't my time. I wasn't done yet. Somebody said, "No, you know what? You're not done yet. You have to start this new program, and you have to give back to a profession that I love, a profession that has given me so much. I have to give back to it." And that's what we're doing. And I mentioned Africa and Kenya. We and the way we got actually started there. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but
No,
that's unfortunately the way my brain works. But,
so does mine. It's
but yeah.
I'm
So,
following.
well, yeah, as you can tell, I've had concussions. Uh,
Yeah.
but and it's funny the way we started in Africa. We started doing these educational webinars based out of the East Coast here in Canada, and then into the States. And we'd always get two people that would call in from Kenya. And when we did the time change, we found out it was 3 in the morning there. So we reached out. I reached out. I sent an email to this girl named Pate, and I said, yeah, you don't have to answer me or anything, but I really appreciate you calling in. And we spoke, and she said, "Yeah, you know what? We're going through a hard time here, and this, we have we have issues here, and it's so important to to get this help we need." So she developed a peer support network in Africa, in Kenya, and their meetings are unbelievable. They have amazing speakers, so much so that we're trying to get one of the doctors that spoke, who was, I could have listened to him for a week, talk about depression and substance abuse. Their meetings are incredible, and you realize, as I've stated before, you think you're the only one. You realize that what we're dealing with here in North America, Kenya are dealing with the same things. You know,
Yeah,
this is a big world, but a small community within that big world.
absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and that is I'm just so grateful to the people on my team, or on our team, our management team, our board of directors. Um, something I've done in with this organization, as I've done in my marriage, I surround myself with people that are smarter than me, right?
Well, I mean, you
So,
you must be so proud of all of the achievements that you and your team, have made and internationally. I
yeah.
mean, you took your second chance at life on January 7th, and wow, you went beyond, I'm sure, your own expectations at this point.
Oh, yeah, totally, totally. Kind of where we are now, and the outreach we have, and to know that we are keeping people in this industry. We know that people are getting the help they need. We've got people into residential care for substance abuse. We've made those calls for people. We've given people a second chance.
That is
And
huge. Yeah.
but you know what? Like, what is this industry? what is this industry all about? It's about compassion. It's about
Yes.
love. It's
And
about
caring
caring.
for other people.
That's what we do for a
Yeah,
living.
that's
Um,
right.
we need to start looking after ourselves, and not only in funeral service, but I think in every industry. I always tell people this, especially around election time. You'll hear different parties, different party leaders saying, we're gonna put this many millions into mental health care and that many. Here's a little fact: there is no extra money. There is no extra healthcare money for mental health. There isn't. It is now up to companies to realize to start investing in their employees,
Yeah.
investing in their care. I mean, we do it for eye care, we do it for dental care.
Yeah,
Mental health care is well, I was going to say just as important. It's more important. um,
absolutely.
and knowing, here's another stat, and I learned this last year attending the New York convention, is that a majority of people now, and whether it's funeral service or any other profession, if they know that they're looked after, if they know they're cared for, if they know that their families are cared for, they will stay with a company knowing they're making less money. It's not always about chasing the money all the time. It's really about, am I cared for? Am I important to this company?
So true.
And if you know that your employer has your back, you know what? I'll deal with making less money, knowing
Absolutely.
that.
And we're not going to be much good to others and the families that we serve if we're not looked after ourselves. And there's no
Oh
doubt
yeah,
about that. That's so true.
yeah, yeah. And depression is a disease, but as I said, you can live with this. You can function, you can carry on and have a productive, amazing life.
And
you know
sometimes when we hit rock bottom, some of the most inspirational things can come out of it from a dark spot. And obviously that you're a true example of that. And that's really inspirational.
yeah,
That's
well, thank you.
unreal.
And you know what? We're still looking at new things. One thing we really want to get off the ground is providing, leadership training for, people in our industry, because sometimes, you kind of need that help, help off the ground, as you said, when you reach that rock bottom. One thing we want to do is management training. um, we hear companies all the time, and not just in this profession and other professions. We hear companies all the time say, "Oh, you know what? That management training, that's just way too expensive. They'll just learn as they go." When you promote somebody to being a supervisor or manager, and I'll use this example. If you had a brand new Lamborghini, would you just toss me the keys? Like, and I'd say, well, I've never driven a stick before. You'll learn as you go. You know, we don't do that with our cars. Why do we do that with our business, our multi-million dollar business? Do we just say, you'll just learn as you go? You
Yep.
know, we have people working as supervisors and managers who do have no idea how to do that. They're not, what is a manager? It's a coach. Well, what's a coach? Somebody who teaches, somebody who coaches, somebody who leads a team. You know, um, we need to start doing that training, because a majority of what we hear, why people leave businesses, a lot of it has to
Poor
do with
management.
poor
Yes.
management.
Yeah.
You know,
That
you
is
know,
so true.
you know,
Yeah.
people that shouldn't make a meal, let alone run a company. You know, like, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and you know what? When I brought up what this industry is, we could be the leader in how a profession treats its employees, right? We could be that gold star that other industries look to as a shining example. We can do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, with what our organization is doing. And I mentioned it before we started recording, but we have a podcast which we're really excited
Yes.
about. Stronger Together. New shows come out every Monday. We talk to people that are in the industry or not, but a lot of that is really good inspirational stories. People that have or have not had struggles, but are making this world a better place. And that's what we kind of need to do as a people. You know, let's start making this world. Let's start making this profession a better place to be, and knowing that people don't have to leave it to have a successful life.
I
And that's what
couldn't
we're
agree
trying to
more.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Wow. Well, I will definitely post a link to your peer support group, Michael, and your podcast for people to have a look. And again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story today. That was truly touching, and you are an inspiration. And I've been on a few of the peer support meetings before, but I truly didn't realize how big this was, and that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
Well, as I
thank you
said,
so
it's not,
much.
yeah, I have an amazing team from Lisa Smith to Kim Zaratni in the States, and other folks that are doing amazing things. It's a really a labor of love, and it's people who love this profession as much as I do and you do,
That's right.
that want to make sure people stay in it.
Yeah. And in order to do that, we need to look after ourselves. There's just no question. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And as I said, you can live very, very well.
Yeah.
With a mental health issue, with depression. It's not a death sentence. You can do this, you know.
We
You
can
have to do the
survive.
work though. Yeah.
Yes. You got to show up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you so much, Michael, for being here. And again, I'll make sure that your information is available for everybody, and to be able to contact you if need be, or
Definitely.
join a call or
Yeah,
listen to your podcast.
what I'll do is I'll send you our contact info, our office number and email, and you can put it out there to your listeners. And yeah, and you know what? Thank you for having us here today.